perfect prospect pairings. Shedeur Sanders, quarterback from Colorado, would be the perfect fit for Titans head coach Brian Callahan's offense in 2025. We're going to break this down and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. We have a fun show and fun discussions to have, family. Perfect prospect pairings, pairing our offensive and defensive prospect to the right team and situation. We have biggest draft storylines after week 7 of college football for the 2025 NFL draft. And then we have Dame's Dudes. Keith is not with me again today. He'll be back tomorrow, but I have some guys, and we're going to see who's in the club and who's out the club. But before we can get into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Perfect prospect pairing. The Tennessee Titans have a need at quarterback. They're one of the few teams. There's a couple teams that right now you look through what the first 6 weeks of the NFL season, you're like, man, there could be a change at quarterback for 2025 this offseason, whether through free agency or the draft. Brian Callahan, me and Keith talked about this on the pod. We took some blowback from some Will Levis Titan fans and believers. Will Levis was never a fit for this offense. Brian Callahan is used to distributors, quarterbacks that distribute the ball at a high level with accuracy, timing, and rhythm. Jake Browning, we saw what he was able to do when Joe Burrow went down. Cool Joe Burrow being the franchise guy there, right? We're accustomed to seeing that style quarterback. Will Levis is a guy that thrives off of play action, under center, taking deep shots, the money shots, the vertical shots down the field, using this big arm, right? Driving the ball down the field. He's a vertical shot maker and taker. That's his game. He's not a timing and rhythm, short to intermediate passer. He does not play that way. He's never played that way. But you know who does? Shedeur Sanders from Colorado. To me, when you think about a quarterback that fits this type of offense, that fits what Brian Callahan needs, to me, it's Shedeur Sanders, guys. Shedeur Sanders can absolutely give him that Joe Burrow-esque, right? Because when you think about what Joe Burrow looked like at LSU and in Cincinnati, when he's at his best, he's one of the few quarterbacks that you feel like I have to give him a run game. You want to give him a run game, but every time I've seen Joe Burrow cook, it's been empty, shotgun, maybe 11 personnel, 3 receivers, 1 tight end, and the running back. But a lot of times it's spreading the defense out pre-snap, getting everyone out in space, and then let me pick my poison. Like a point guard in basketball where I know I have shooters around me, and because I have shooters, you have to give the spacing is optimal. And when you have a T. Higgins, when you have a Jamar Chase, right, Tyler Boyd, those guys, Joe Mixon out of the backfield, whether running or catching the football, whatever it may be, that's when Joe Burrow was at his best. Shedeur Sanders operates like that as well. And then you think about Will Levis. One of the biggest knocks I had on him in my draft profile was the simple fact that he was stone-footed in the pocket. He didn't navigate and move the pocket well or climb and negotiate pressure well. And he didn't see the field well. It wasn't a full field reader. He was kind of a half field, talking about hash mark the sideline type of guy when he's actually reading and processing. And he was also not a fast processor of information. And that's somewhat one of the knocks on Shedeur is that he can be somewhat of not a slow processor, but more so he likes to wait till guys open. He wants to throw. He will throw them open. He's super accurate. His ball placement is some of the best in the game. And we've talked about that, right? Me and Q just didn't make the case last week where he took Shedeur Sanders, right, as QB1, and I took Cam Ward. But when I look at a guy that can step into that Titans offense, listen, like Calvin Ridley, you got Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears, DeAndre Hopkins when healthy, Treylon Burks when healthy. Like, there's enough weapons, in my opinion, on this Titans team, and you're just kind of sitting there and wondering to yourself, what's the holdup? What's stopping the Titans from getting it done? And to me, I think it goes to the quarterback. Will Levis has been bad. Like, Will Levis has been a bad quarterback. And I know that the Falcons game, his first game of the season, first start of the season last year, like, really fooled a lot of people. And didn't but it's just not good. And right now, Will Levis, like, again, completing, 66.5% completion percentage, right? So almost 700 yards passing. He's 699. But he's averaging 5.6 yards per attempt, 140 yards passing a game. He's been sacked 15 times. He's thrown more interceptions with 7 than touchdowns with 5. He's not a fit for this offense. Calvin Ridley's getting frustrated because he's going without the ball. Like, Calvin Ridley's been targeted 27 times, only 9 receptions. Only 9 receptions? Like, what? Like, DeAndre Hopkins was great for Levis because he was an accuracy extender, because Will Levis was never really an accurate quarterback. So despite how clean his mechanics looked when he threw the ball in clean pockets, he was never accurate. Shedeur Sanders is a highly accurate quarterback, similar to Joe Burrow. And the thing about that, he's one of my comps. Like, if you go to Bleacher Report, for those who know, I'm a scout over at Bleacher Report now, left the Draft Network. You go to Bleacher Report and you read my scouting report. I put in my scouting report, he's got shades of C.J. Stroud and Joe Burrow. And I know that's lofty expectations because we've seen what both of those guys have been able to do. But I'm just saying, for me and my money, I want Shedeur Sanders in this offense with Brian Callahan, with potentially DeAndre Hopkins, with Calvin Ridley. We've seen what he's able to do with Jimmy Horn, LeJontay Wester, Xavier Weaver last year, of course, Travis Hunter. But you give him a guy like Calvin Ridley, who's one of the best route runners in the NFL, right? Like, speed to win vertical, all that stuff, and really can win out of the slot and the Z spot. I'm telling you right now, Shedeur Sanders absolutely is the pick for me. That's a perfect prospect pairing. I want to go to the defensive side of the ball, and my perfect prospect pairing, I want to see this young man. I want to see him in Detroit, and that is Nick Scourton, edge rusher from Texas A&M. Like, the Purdue transfer to Texas A&M, man, 6'4", 285, guys. But he moves like he's 240. Like, this dude has such a fluid movement skill, a package of movement skills. He's agile, he's smooth, he's athletic, he's quick twitch. He has one of the best spin moves, whether outside or inside, in college football. And he's 20 years old. 6'4", 285 at 20 years old. That's crazy, because he hasn't even reached that level where he's like, and you talking about a mental development, like, he's still developing as an adult, and that leads to his ceiling being higher, understanding how to properly place his strikes, understanding how to set up blockers and set up the offensive tackles so he can win his reps. That nuance and detail that you see from veteran pass rushers, yeah, that's going to come with time for this young man. And when it happens, I'm telling you now, look out. Aiden Hutchinson, like, broke his fibula, I think it was, in such a gruesome injury. Prayers up for Aiden Hutchinson. I think he's probably the betting favorite, really, right, to be the defensive player of the year. He was balling. But now he's out for the next 8 to 10 months. And I think he's supposed to be ready to go in about 8 to 10 months, 100% healthy. But you know what? This is a clear situation where you look at the Lions were trying to rebuild their secondary, and I understand it. I get it wholeheartedly, right? Terrion Arnold, Brian Branch last year, Ennis Rakestraw. You had to rebuild the secondary. I get it. But I will say this: you need to get another edge rusher. And Nick Scott, oh my God, you think about putting Nick Scourton opposite of a healthy Aiden Hutchinson? I'm sorry, Jordan Love. I'm sorry, Caleb Williams. I'm sorry, whether it's Sam Darnold or J.J. McCarthy, that pass rush is getting home. That pass rush is getting to you. So for me, Nick Scourton to the Detroit Lions is a perfect prospect pairing. I think he would be the exact type of guy that Coach Dan Campbell and defense coordinator Aaron Glenn would want on this roster. But guys, coming up next, we're going to get into the biggest draft storylines after week 7 of the college football season. Ohio State left tackle Josh Simmons went down, non-contact injury. He's probably going to be out for the rest of this season. I think that is the case. How does that impact the 2025 offensive tackle class? We're going to discuss this and more coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch or an urge in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you placed your bets. And we talk about placing bets. Guys, FanDuel Sportsbook has the live betting odds right now for the NFL season awards, like MVP. And Patrick Mahomes is still leading the way with plus 300. Lamar Jackson's at plus 550. Josh Allen is at plus 1,100. Guys, I'm telling you now, you want to go ahead and get in on the action right now. Okay, you get started with $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. With your first $5 bet place, you'll get $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. You don't want to miss out on this, guys. And how can you not miss out on this? Easy. Just go to FanDuel.com to get in on the action. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You can win 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks puts its members first, guys, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Go ahead and sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. NFL draft storylines, the biggest NFL draft storylines after week 7 of college football. The non-contact injury to Josh Simmons is big time. And I want you guys, I want to compartmentalize, I want to contextualize, I'm sorry. And I want you to compartmentalize what I'm saying. This young man was trending in the right direction. Over at Bleacher Report, Josh Simmons, I believe, had just jumped. He's a senior, had just jumped to the top of our offensive tackle gradings. Listen, 6'5", 310. This young man had just jumped to the top of our offensive tackle ratings and rankings over Will Campbell, over Emory Jones, over my guy out of Minnesota, Ariante Ursery. This young man is such an athletic, specimen, footwork, foot quickness, quick twitch, power, all of that, man. He had the total package. Only thing we needed to see was a full game against one of the better defensive lines in college football and in the Big Ten, Oregon. And he was playing well. You see the athleticism in the run game where I think it was Travion Henderson's big run up the left sideline, I believe it was. It almost went for a touchdown. Yeah, he ran and ran off of the back and off the hip of Josh Simmons, who was moving out. His movement skills to get from the line of scrimmage out into space to pick off safeties, linebackers, corners, whatever. He is so athletic. This young man is good, guys. He is good. And it's such a bummer to lose this type of talent in this class. Not say in this class. He's a senior. I don't believe he has eligibility left. Maybe if he wanted to, maybe he could say, listen, I want to seek a medical red shirt and try to come back. But I truly believe, hey, you know what? Just get healthy, young man. If it's an ACL, it's non-contact, just get healthy. And now, don't get me wrong, this is a guy he was working his way for a lot of analysts, evaluators, and some scouts into round 1 consideration. And if he was working his way to the top of the offensive tackle class, then what's the blowback? What's the residual effect of this injury? He's probably going day 2, second round. And you think about teams that, because again, right? Like, if you're the Carolina Panthers, if Ike Ekwonu isn't getting the job done, right? Like, if he's not playing at the level you want him to play at, that you feel comfortable going into next year, which would be year 3, 4, whatever. I think it's 3 or 4. No, this is year 3, if I remember correctly. This is year 3, going into year 4. So then what do you say? That if Josh Simmons falls to you in the second round, you make that. If you have a second round pick, you make that move. Because why? If you don't feel comfortable with Ike Ekwonu long term, guess what you don't do? Pick up that 5th-year option. You don't pick it up. You let him play. You let him start, and you allow Josh Simmons to get healthy. And then you can you can either trade him at the deadline, right, and start Josh Simmons the middle of the season, like at the deadline of his rookie year. He's healthy, like he's been training, he's been getting ready. He knows the playbook, stuff like that. He knows the calls. Mentally, he's ready. Physically, he's ready. Rather than trying to rush him back to be a first-year starter week 1 right out the gate. If that's the case, then you trade Ike to a team that thinks he's better suited for their power run game. He's better suited to play guard, whatever the case may be. I'd rather do that. Or you play him all season, let Josh Simmons get that red shirt year as a rookie, and then you let Ike walk off into free agency, right? You let him walk. And you say, we wipe our hands with it. But that's the type of situation. Teams that, like, you have a veteran that might be on an expiring contract after the 2025 season or whatever the case may be. So he's got 1 year left. Yeah, second round, I'm drafting Josh Simmons. If I don't want to pay out this money to this aging veteran who his play is tapering off, things like that, why not, right? Like, why wouldn't I do that? I'm just saying, for me personally, that's how I view it. I think that this young man has a super high ceiling, right? He, at times, to me, movement skills wise and everything else, he looked like Rashawn Slater. Like, he is a baller. He's a gamer. He gets the job done. And again, if he falls to the second round, his stock drops to day 2. That means that Will Campbell, who their teams and their scouts and evaluators that have him labeled as a guard. Same thing with Emory Jones, right? Ariante Ursary is viewed as a day 2 prospect right now. So the offensive tackle class, it's not great at the particular moment, just to be completely honest with y'all. It is not a great situation. But because of where we are, right, you have to think about it from the aspect of, hey, at the end of the day, if I can get a guy like this, like you said, second round, and not have to trade, like, you don't have to trade up. You don't have to make the move. You don't have to do those things. And looking at this offensive tackle class in general, like, I'm sorry, I forgot about Kelvin Banks, right? Then you got Cameron Williams, the teammate of Kelvin Banks. Like, these are 2 guys that could also end up being in first round consideration, right? I've heard Wyatt Millum, the left tackle over at West Virginia. I've heard people label him as a guard or a center. Jonas Savanea, the right tackle over at Arizona. I think his stock is, like, really, really hinging on Talise Fuaga and J.C. Latham playing good ball at tackle in true drop back situations as pass protectors. Then you think about Blake Miller over at Clemson, the right tackle. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of talent, but right now the tackle class is muddied, and the Josh Simmons injury is the biggest storyline to me, and it muddies this situation even more now. It muddies it. It puts more dust and clouds because we just don't know who are the true. Are there any blue chip offensive tackles? Right? Last year, it was Olu Fashanu. It was Joe Alt, right? Are there any blue chip tackles? We're watching the guy that I was high on, but I knew he was raw 2 years ago that was drafted to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this is going to be a conversation for a different day. Stop drafting these tackles who predominantly play left tackle and play them at right if that's not where they're comfortable. Like, Olu has not looked great for the most part this season, thrusting into that right tackle spot where maybe you ask Tyron Smith to play right tackle. He's a veteran. Make him play right tackle. Let the young kid play left where he's naturally gifted and used to. The muscle memory of going from practicing at left tackle to, okay, now I'm playing right tackle because the Morgan Moses or whoever was hurt. Same thing with Broderick Jones in Pittsburgh. Like, you start him as a right tackle because you leave Dan Moore at left tackle, who gave up 55 pressures by himself last year. It never should have been that case. It should have been Broderick Jones, start at left tackle, deal with the lumps, and let him develop at that position. Let's stop putting these guys in that position and flipping them around. But again, are there any blue chip tackles? I don't know if we have any of those guys. I think Josh Simmons was trying to work himself into that realm, and a strong season against top tier competition, against Oregon, against Michigan, things of that nature would have done wonders for his case. But again, that's the biggest storyline, guys. The offensive tackle class, losing Josh Simmons for the rest of the season, it muddies it up. It puts more dust and more clouds, and we just don't know how good and how early we should attack the offensive tackles in the 2025 NFL draft. But coming up next, Dames, Dudes. Guys, I put myself in the hot seat. 5 names, 5 prospects. Are they in or are they out of the club? We're going to talk about that coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Gametime also has tickets for all live events, not just sporting events. Guys, Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And if you're going with your family, a group of 3, 4, 5, or going with friends, you know what type of hassle it is to find seats that are consecutively layered side by side. And Gametime Picks can help you get through all of the wash and the fluff. Also, what I love about Gametime, they show the views from the seats in the venue, so before you purchase your tickets, you know which vantage point you and your party will have. They have lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and job loss protection. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Dames, Dudes, let's go ahead and get into it. 5 prospects trying to get in the club. They're in line. Who's getting the stamp? Who can get in VIP? Who can have some drinks? And who has to go home or back to their dorm and play better next week? Let's start off with one of the biggest names in college football, Jalen Milroe, quarterback out of Alabama, coming off of a squeaked out win, won by the skin of their teeth, as they say down here in South Carolina, against South Carolina at that. Jalen Milroe is not getting in the club this week, guys. I love him I love his skill set, his ability as a player, his rushing ability, everything. Against South Carolina, Jalen Milroe, I would probably say this was his worst performance of the season. Jalen Milroe completed almost 70% of his passes. He was 16 of 23 for only 209 yards passing. He had 1 passing touchdown. He did have 2 rushing, so he had 3 total touchdowns. He was sacked 4 times, and he had 2 interceptions. He finished with a QBR of 69.2. He had 18 rushes for 36 yards. I know some of that is going to be taken away because of the 4 sacks and how college football does the sack yardage and everything. But here's where it was not good. Down the field, and I think we've talked about this with Jalen Milroe. He is a vertical passer, similar to a Will Levis, a Anthony Richardson, those guys. Like, big play hunter. He wants to throw it down the field, take the deep shots, the seam ball, the 9 route, all of that, the bang 8, the post, whatever. He wants to create explosives in the passing game. Well, in this game, South Carolina held him to 3 deep attempts. That means 20-plus yards down the field. He was held to 3 attempts only. He completed 1. He had one, and the one completion he had went for a 34-yard touchdown, and then he had an interception down the field as well. His second interception came in the intermediate 10 to 19-yard range. And this is where he has to be better. Can you still be effective? Can you still dominate the game as a passer with the lid on top by the defense? You go into the NFL, you're not seeing a lot of like one-on-one single high safeties. They're playing 2 high shells. They're playing cover 4. They're playing cover 2. They might show cover 1, rotate the cover 2 man under, all of that. You're seeing 2 safeties deep. They're taking those deep shots away. So what do you do? How can you counter when the deep shots have been taken away? And he didn't have a counter in this game. Not only that, under pressure. He was under pressure on 10 of his dropbacks. He accounted, so that's 6 of his attempts. He was 1 of 6, 16.7% completion, 13 yards. He completed 1 out of 6 attempts for 13 yards under pressure. Like, when he was blitzed, like, he was good, right? He did throw an interception with his blitz. He was good, though, but mainly because they picked up the blitz. And you know what I'm saying? So it's like, when you see those when blitzed numbers, he's not in the club. Really, like I said, I love Jalen Milroe, but this is the development we need to see, because when you get to the NFL and they corral you in the pocket, defensive line coaches, hey, must rush, slow rush, like quicksand him, slowly collapse the pocket. Don't get out of your rush lanes. Now you have to sit in the pocket. You're facing 2 high safeties. What can you do in the short to intermediate? That's going to prove the effectiveness of as a passer at the next level. That's where the development needs to continue. Next up, DJ Giddens, running back from Kansas State. DJ Giddens is absolutely in the club. You talk about a guy that carried his team to victory. I know the quarterback had a couple late throws that helped put them over the hump against Colorado, but the 6'1", 212-pound running back that can do it all, catch the ball out of the backfield, play as a power runner, do all the different things that DJ Giddens can do. 25 carries, 182 yards rushing, over 7 yards per rush. Also had 2 catches for 38 yards. He had over 200 yards total from scrimmage. Yes, DJ Giddens 100% deserves. He 100% deserves to get in the club, because without DJ Giddens, they don't win that game. Avery Johnson's not a good passer. He was 15 of 23, 224, 2 touchdowns and an interception. But again, it was the late game passing ability. You're not in a late game situation without DJ Giddens. You're probably getting blown out. Because Colorado still scored 28. Your passing game was not robust. So for me, I look at DJ Giddens. He's 100% a Dame's dude. He's in the club. Next up, guys, let's talk about a guy that we've been wondering, where you at? We didn't say where you were at. We didn't do that segment for him yet. That's coming back shortly. But we were wondering, where you at, Evan Stewart? Should you return to school, Evan Stewart? Coming into week 7, he had 1 game, and that was week 2 against Boise State, where he had over 50 yards receiving. Matter of fact, over 30 yards receiving. The rest of the game's been under 30. Up until Ohio State. Big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games. He was 7 of 8, 149 yards and a touchdown. He averaged over 21 yards per catch, and he dominated Denzel Burke and really kind of exposed Denzel Burke in coverage in this game on Saturday night, right, in Eugene, Oregon. Evan Stewart, 100%. I'm hoping that Dylan Gabriel and that offense consistently gets him the ball from here on out and understands he's your most explosive vertical playmaker and outside receiver. Get him the football, let him make plays, because he's that type of guy. He's in the club. So what? That's 2 out of 3. 2 out of 3 have gotten in. Coming up next, guys, Cam Rising. How old is Cam Rising, aka Uncle Rico? 6'2", 220. He's not in the club, though. Loss against Arizona State, 16-37, 209 yards passing, 43% completion percentage, and he was sacked twice. He threw 0 touchdowns. He accounted for 0 touchdowns. He accounted for 3 interceptions. And I know he had a hand injury and everything a couple of weeks earlier in the season that actually kept him out of a game or 2, or whatever the case may be. I think he's only played, this was his 3rd game of the season, right? Through 7 weeks. But still yet, man, like, if you're out there, you got to play and you got to make the right plays. And he just didn't. I don't view him as a draftable prospect. I'm not really sure what the future holds for him. But yeah, Uncle Rico not getting in. So that's 2 for 2. How are we going to finish this? How are we going to close this thing out? Antoine Juice Wells from Ole Miss. Whoo, man, he was having a good season. He was having a good season through the first 4 weeks. 70 yards receiving, 78, 60, 66, 4 consecutive games like that, and a receiving touchdown 4 straight games. Starting in week 5, kicking off SEC competition, this young man has been targeted 14 times. He's only caught 3 targets for 94 yards, and that was last week against South Carolina. He has gone 2 out of the 3 SEC games without a catch, catchless, including this past weekend against LSU. 3 targets, 0 receptions. Out there just getting cardio, man. I'm not sure what's going on. I feel like he probably should have stayed at South Carolina for this. Antoine Juicewell's not in the club. I need to see him return the form. This is a good football player. Trey Harris, Trey Harris, me and Keith going to talk about who's wide receiver 2, I think, on tomorrow's show when he gets back. But Trey Harris has been balling. Juice Wells, with the uptick in competition, and he's an SEC receiver as well, he just hasn't answered the bell. And it's not all his fault. So a lot of it is on Jackson Dart and his inaccuracy down the field and things of that nature. But Juice Wells, you gotta find a way to get into the stat sheet. Got to find a way to make the plays, guys. But that is where we went 2 for 3, 3 no's, 2 yeses into the club of Dames Dudes. But again, that's our show, guys. Dames Dudes, biggest draft storylines and perfect pairings, guys. Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube. Wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everydayers. If you so mind, please, on the audio side of things, leave us a 5-star comment and review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Show us some love. Continue to show to support this pod and also recommend it to your friends, man. We talk college football, NFL, and NFL draft heavily on this show, guys. On tomorrow's show, we are absolutely getting into NFL teams, NFL QB needy teams, and how it's going to impact the 2025 quarterback draft class. So we can get into all that on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.